Is it on? There you go. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Convocation. It's really nice to have you here today with us. Just a couple reminders before we get started. Make sure that you are keeping up on your cultural events and handing in the surveys as well. Remember that the final due date for cultural events is December 12th. That is the last day of class, and they are due at 11:59. If somehow you wait until the last minute and you can't turn it in because Canvas is bogged down because of everybody who's trying to hand in things, that's too bad. It is a fail for the class. Remember that you have to complete all of the requirements. Remember that the requirements are attending and paying attention at 10 of the 12 presentations during the semester. Also to fill out a response survey for each of the presentations that you attend. If you miss more than 2 times, you can receive a makeup assignment, okay, but I can't give more than 3 makeup assignments, so you must attend Convocation. All right, okay. Anything else? Nope, I think that was it. There was supposed to be a European cultural event soon, but apparently they had to postpone it. So be looking at the events calendar, the cultural events calendar on Canvas to see when that shows up again. Otherwise, there's a play going on right now. I hear it's great. There are lots of concerts coming up next month. So there should be a lot of things to do. Also, the art gallery will be reopening with a new exhibit starting Tuesday. So if you haven't done any of those things yet, make sure that you take care of them soon, okay? Better earlier than later. All right. Well, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you the person who is going to introduce our speaker. As you know, we have as our speaker today, Dr. Geoff Thomas. Well, I have another Dr. Thomas who is here, who's actually a professor of English here at Snow College. And he is going to introduce our speaker. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Jacob Thomas. I have known him ever since he started working here at Snow College. And in fact, his office is right next door to mine. And so I hear a lot of fun things, and he probably hears more than he wants to hear. But I've attended a class of his, an honors class that he taught, and it was amazing. You guys, if you have an opportunity to take a class from Dr. Jacob Thomas, you really should. It's a lot of fun. Also, we just found out, I think I can say this, that his tenure was approved. Yay! Everybody clap. That's a good thing. Yeah. Okay. And if you go by his office and you check out his door, you will find out how he is a little funny cartoon that celebrates this announcement that he has been approved for tenure. So please welcome to the stage my friend, Dr. Jacob Thomas.
Hey, everybody. What's up? Any of my Shakespeare students here? Hey, you get extra credit. You get extra credit. All right, very good. I'm really honored today to introduce my dad, Dr. Geoff Thomas. And it's spelled Geoff, which is the proper spelling. But yeah, you say it Jeff. And he's my personal hero. He has an incredible educational journey, and he's going to share some of that with you. So he was born and grew up in Wisconsin, rural Wisconsin, on a dairy farm. And the situation there was less than ideal. And he's going to go more into that. But essentially, he had a very abusive stepdad. And he saw 2 things as his ticket to overcoming that sort of cycle of abuse and getting off the farm. And the first was his personal faith, and the second was public education. And he dedicated his life and his career to education. And so he went to Utah State. Well, after they moved out from Wisconsin, divorced the dairy farmer, moved to Utah, Logan, Utah, and he went to Utah State. And there he got a bachelor's in history. And then he started to teach history at Carbon High School in Price. Anybody from Price? Carbon County? Hey, right there. Maybe he taught one of your parents. We'll see. And then from that point, he got a master's degree at Utah State and then moved his family to Idaho and was a school administrator and assistant principal. And then eventually he got his education doctorate and then became a superintendent. And he was superintendent of the schools in Rexburg, Idaho for 20 years. And so that's where I grew up as the oldest child of his 5 children, was in southeastern Idaho. But I did come to Snow College, and I've never regretted it. But, yeah, there we go. But he's married to my mom, of course. Her name is Janalee. She's a registered nurse and parent to 5 children and grandparent to 6 children, and probably more eventually. And so it's with great honor and great pleasure that I introduce my dad, Dr. Geoff Thomas. Come on up.
Well, good afternoon. It is great to be with you. It's an honor to be here, and I didn't know that, man, you guys are a good-looking crew. I didn't know that was a requirement for convocations, is you had to be attractive. So way to go, you guys. Good job. Love Snow College. Glad to be here. Appreciate the introduction. My wife and I are very proud of Jacob and the great professional that he is, but more importantly, the good man that he is and the great family that he has, and his wife Melissa and daughter Eleanor. So, interesting thing happened. I appreciate Dr. Bodrero's invitation to speak with you today. Interesting thing happened about a week ago, is I got a Get Better Soon card from Dr. Bodrero. So I called her and I said, Dr. Bodrero, I'm not sick. And she goes, I know. I just think you need to get better. Okay. I was arrested once for attempted humor, so just work with me there. Anyway, so I want to talk today a little bit about my educational journey, but it really is, it's about our educational journey, you and I. And I want to approach this as if you and I were having a conversation. You and I were sitting at a table somewhere in a restaurant or in the student lounge or somewhere where we're talking. And afterwards, what I'm hoping is that there's some takeaways that you'll have, that things that you can do, to do, or some things you would avoid. And that's what we do when we have these types of conversations. You learn from people things to do and things not to do. So, where to begin? Well, I never knew my biological father. He was an alcoholic. And as I say these stories, this is only really the 3rd time I've ever shared this kind of stuff publicly. So the emotions on occasion get a little raw, just so you know that. Anyway, so I never knew my dad. He was an alcoholic, and my mother was desperately trying to save him from his disease, and that never did work out. And she and my mom and dad had already had 2 children, and my dad did not want to have any more kids. Well, my mom wanted to have another baby. And they had had this discussion, back and forth, and then, so she told him that it was a safe time to engage in reproductive behaviors. And 9 months later, here I am, the result of the immaculate deception. Thank you. Okay, good. Thanks, Mom, for lying to get me here. Anyway. And so, shortly after I was born, Mom kicked Dad out of the house because he just wouldn't stop drinking. And so now all of a sudden she finds herself, single mother, 3 young children, living in a backwater, nowhere, northwest Wisconsin town, working menial jobs because she just had a high school education. And she's just desperately trying to pay the rent and put food on the table. And we were poor. We were desperately poor. I mean, very few clothes, very few toys. And we were so poor, I always say that we were so poor, we used to get care packages from North Korea. So we were poor. And we also knew hunger because there just wasn't a lot of food sometimes. And I have this vivid memory of me at age 4 or so, and my mom standing at the kitchen sink, and she's just crying. So I go up and go, Mommy, what's wrong? And she says, oh, there's no food. We got a terrible supper for you kids. And what we had was each had a slice of bread and some butter. And I said, oh, Mom, it's okay. It's a great supper. And she's like, oh, yeah, sure it is. Anyway, so growing up, I knew what poverty was like, and I knew what hunger was like. And I know people say, there's no hunger in the United States, and I'm here to tell you that's a bunch of frickin' crap, because I've experienced it. Anyway, so I go to kindergarten, and I was just super ADD. You ever heard of ADD? I was ADD. Easily distracted, super hyperactive, and they didn't have a term for it back then. They just said ASS. And my kindergarten teacher just didn't know how to handle me, and I was all over the place. But what I learned is I could really do well academically. I mean, I learned to read. I took to reading like a duck to water. And I was the first one in class to learn how to tell time. And not with that digital stuff like they have now, but with the old sundials. That's how old I am. Anyway, but I excelled academically, which was great. And you know that from an early age if you're doing well, and I knew that. And so in first grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Wells. And she took an interest in me. And she was able to channel my legendary hyperactivity into a positive way. And my mom asked her, and she said, well, what do you do? You know, why? Because last year he really struggled behaviorally, but now he's doing great. And she says, I give Geoff twice as much work as anyone else, and he gets it done. And that has been the story of my life, my whole life. When you're a child of an alcoholic, you either become a super achiever or you become an alcoholic, like my brother. So, when I'm in second grade, as was mentioned by Jacob, my mom got this bright idea to marry a local dairy farmer. And he was one of the worst human beings I've ever met. I mean, filthy, profanity-laced language. And I've worked on farms and ranches. I've worked in construction. I've worked with military personnel. I know all the words. And I hear people swear, and I get it. People swear. But no one had the most vile, filthy mouth that this dairy farmer had. Plus, he had an explosive temper. And I remember one day, he was just really angry at one of the cows, which is easy to do because cows are pretty stupid. And he was angry at this cow, so he grabs a hammer, bangs it on the head, kills it. Well, you know, I'm 7. This has made an impression on me. And so what he would do when he was angry at my brother and I, there's a leather strap that goes around a cow's back. It's called a surcingle. It's leather, and it has metal buckles. And it goes around a cow's back, and then they put a milking machine, which hooks onto it, which then attaches to the udder. Well, when he would be angry at my brother and I, which was a lot, he would take this, and then he would beat us. And he would beat us, and he would beat us. And I remember from the back of my head down to my calves, back of my arms, all the way down my backside and everything, deep indentations, cuts, bleeding, bruises, to the point where I couldn't sit down. So I knew what it was like to get a beating. It wasn't a spanking, it was a beating. And it happened a lot. So years later, the lady that lived across the street and down on the next farm, she says, you know, when this was years later, she says, oh, my husband and I, we could hear you and your brother screaming when the farmer beat you. I'm like, well, you could have told somebody, you know. Come on, lady, help us out. So it was really bad. In addition to the physical abuse, he would just denigrate us. You know, how can you be so effing stupid? How can you be so gosh dang blankety blank, blankety blank, blank? Think of all the compound words, don't think of them, but you get my point. How can you be so stupid? How come you don't know how to fix the transmission? I'm like, I'm 7. I can't even spell transmission. He goes, you should automatically know how to do this stuff. And it would just be a daily onslaught of verbal negativity. And then in addition, he would interrogate us. So he had a pickup truck, an old farm truck, It's just a farm truck. It wasn't like a 2023 Chevy High Country 3/4 ton XLT deluxe package. You can tell I've been looking at trucks lately. Okay, anyway, I suffer from truck lust. There you go. There, it's out there. Now you all know. Anyway, it's just a farm truck. It's got dents, it's got rust and stuff, and it got some scratches on it. Well, there's tons of woods, and there's fences, and there's all kinds of stuff. And he'd say, I want to know which one of you boys scratched my truck. Who did it? I want to know who did it. Who did it? You tell me who did it. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't scratch it. My brother's like, I don't know who did it. But can you imagine day after day after day after day, time after time after time? So finally I said, I did it. And I said it just to shut him up. And guess what? Yep, here comes another beating. So I'm in second grade, and I know poverty, and now I know hunger, now I know physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. Awful. So day before fourth grade starts. Anybody depressed yet? Okay. The day before fourth grade starts, I come down with spinal meningitis. And it's a deadly bacterial virus. And the younger you are, the more deadly it becomes. And I was pretty young. I was 9 years old. And it was close. It was a close call. I was quarantined for 2 weeks in isolation because it's highly contagious. I had a temperature of 105. And I was just heartbeats away from passing away. I recovered, as you can tell. So by the time I'm 9, now I've known poverty, hunger, physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. And now I've had a near-death experience. So why am I telling you all this? Not just to relay what a pathetic and horrible and crappy childhood I had, but in a group like this, just looking at it statistically, you may have had something similar in your life. And if that has happened to you, I would tell you, tell someone. Because I never told anyone. Who was I to tell? My mom used the belt on me. The farmer used the surcingle on me. My brother kicked the crap out of me all the time. I didn't know what to tell. And back in the Paleolithic area in Redneck, Wisconsin, we didn't have any help. I didn't know where to go. I was a kid. So if that has happened to you, you make sure the perpetrator is brought to justice. You call law enforcement. You talk to somebody in authority that can make sure that the abuse stops. That's number one. Number two, talk to somebody about it. I never said a word until I was in my late 50s writing my autobiography, and then whoosh, it all started coming out on paper. So then I called my sister and my brother, and I would triangulate our experiences to see if we're all hearing and seeing and experiencing the same thing. If you broke your arm today and it's snapped, no one is going to tell you, just don't worry about it. Time will heal it. Just live with it. Just deal with it. It's okay. It's not okay. You go to the doctor, you get it set, you get it x-rayed, you get some medication, and so on and so forth. The same with abuse. You can't just say, well, yeah, it happened, and you compartmentalize it like I do, or you try to drink it away like my brother did, or go into your own fantasy world like my sister did. You have to talk to somebody, talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor, whatever, because it doesn't heal on its own. And even my family didn't know a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you today. Okay. So if that has happened to you, make sure you talk to somebody about it. And make sure the perpetrator, make sure it stops with that person. Okay. So the question is, well, how do you get through all that crap? Well, a couple things. For me is, remember I told you, I knew I was smart. I mean, school came pretty easily to me. So I wasn't a genius or anything like that. I was just smart and persevered. So no matter what the dairy farmer told me, I knew he was wrong. No matter how many times he told me what an idiot I was or how worthless I was, I knew that wasn't true. because I knew I was smart, because I could read and I could read well. Second thing is, and I don't know where you are on your faith journey, or even if you have faith, and I'm not sure how I can describe it better than just this. In my darkest days, I was frightened, beaten, emotionally abandoned by my mother, who never lifted a finger to stop the abuse. Skinny little farm kid. I knew God was with me. I felt His presence with me. Now, I don't know how to describe it any better than that. But whether you would say guardian angel, higher power, God, or whatever it was, that's how I felt. And man, that helped me. Because I had a feeling that God knew who I was and what I was going through. Okay. Well, when you work kids over and you beat them up as little boys, they grow up. They grow up. And my brother grew up, and he was always kind of muscle-bound, and he was tough, and he was pissed off, angry, and he was a fighter. By the time he was 16, he was going into bars to deliberately pick fights with adult men because he was good at it. He was a fighter. I was never a fighter. I was a lover. I'm not sure I was that either, but okay. We'll just put that over there. So one day, I was 16, my brother was 17, and I was walking up to the machine shed, and here comes the dairy farmer bolting right past me. So I walk in and asked my brother, who was up there, I said, what happened? What was his problem? He goes, oh, I just kicked the blankety blank blank out of the dairy farmer. I'm like, what? You did? Hallelujah. This is great. I was like, woohoo, yeah. I said, well, what happened? He goes, well, he tried to grab me, so I kicked him where it counts, and I punched him in the face a couple times, and he ran off. And I was like, yes, yes! How awesome that was. He says, and my brother says, if I'd have known how easy it was, I'd have done it when I was 14. I was like, I wish you would have. He goes, I fought a lot tougher guys than him. I was like, way to go. And most bullies are cowards. I mean, if you can work over a 7-year-old, I mean, what kind of man are you? Really? You know? So he was a coward. And anyway, so he kicked us off the farm, and it was one of the best, that sophomore year was one of the best years of my life. I was on the basketball team. I was on the newspaper staff. I was the lead in the school play, and they dual cast the female lead, and there was a kissing part, so I got to kiss 2 girls in practice. Woo! It was awesome! And then we performed in front of the entire student body. I got to kiss a girl, and then, whoo, the crowd went crazy, and my street cred went way up. It was awesome. I was elected student body vice president. It was wonderful. Isn't public education a wonderful thing? Think about what happens in the United States. We educate every child, regardless of gender, socioeconomic status, linguistic abilities, gender, race, color, creed, religion, doesn't matter. We open the doors for everyone. What a wonderful thing. And so I was proud to be in public, and I took advantage of it because, you know, you get academics, you get the arts. I even took welding, for the love of Pete. Nobody wants me to weld anything, you know, for them, but public education opens that door. What a great thing. And this is the thing I love about Snow and Utah State, University of Utah, are the public institutions that provide a world of opportunity for us, for me, a dirt poor, knuckleheaded kid from nowhere, Wisconsin. You know, provided, you know, I've got graduated from high school, and I have 5 university degrees. And not because I'm special, just because I just kept putting one foot in front of the other and achieving. It's a wonderful thing. So, as Jacob mentioned, we moved after the divorce. Mom took us to Logan, Utah. And one day when I was a senior in high school, I woke up and I had this realization. I knew everything. I just knew, I had all of life figured out. I just knew it. I know crap, right? And that's embarrassing. That's an embarrassing thought to have as a senior. And I had a lot of other embarrassing thoughts, which I won't discuss at this time. But that was embarrassing, because shortly thereafter, I'm at Utah State University, just wandering around. I'm at the old Merrill Library on the second floor. And on the second floor, it's where they housed all the professional journals. So if you can imagine a room like this, floor to ceiling, the whole thing filled with these thick-bound journals, which are filled with research articles on everything from anatomy to zoology. And I stood there looking at this sea of knowledge, realizing I had a huge epiphany. I didn't know anything. And that feeling has largely stayed with me the rest of my life. On the heels of that very humbling experience was a fire that was lit. I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to know everything that there was to know. I wanted to learn all about stuff. And the reality is, what we don't know is always greater than what we do know. No matter how expert you are in things, there's always a vast amount of knowledge out there that you don't know. Think about it. What do you really know about anatomy, biology, chemistry? And for you pre-med, OChem, just wait till you get to take that. That's a fun one. Dentistry, ecology, forensics, foreign languages, geology, history, English. Jacob here has forgot more grammatical rules than I've ever learned. You know, you start thinking about, the politics, military science, geopolitical paradigms, all that stuff, and you realize there's a lot out there. And that is part of the educational journey. So how do you do this? How do you try to amass knowledge? Well, I've got some ideas. Number one, read. I know you're going, well, that was a brilliant insight. Yeah, read. But, because I hear people go, well, I know how to read, but I don't like to read. And I always say, get over it. Learn to love to read. Find something you like to read and read it. And then I get I love to read. I've read Harry Potter 10 times. I've read the Harry Potter series. It's very good. I enjoy it. J.K. Rowling got some of my money. But if you're going to read, read well. And so this is what I do. So I read a book that will improve myself intellectually or help me in my profession. Then I read a book that will help strengthen me, inspire me emotionally or help my faith. And then I'll read for diversion or just something abstract that I never would read. So I was reading this, I've got this great book, and essentially it's Deep Physics Subjects for Dummies. It's not the title. But, they talk about wormholes and the space-time continuum and the theory of relativity and all that kind of stuff. Stuff I've read, I heard about, I just didn't know anything about. It's fascinating. So read well, rotate your reading, and another thing I have found, which is very helpful, find the 3 books out there that will be anchors to your self. I'll tell you mine. So the first is Fahrenheit 451. It's a book written in the past about a potential future where governments burn books. And sometimes they burn books because the people want them to burn books because they don't want to have any kind of conflicting thoughts that would make them unhappy, right? Or the government would burn books because books are dangerous. And books themselves are not sacred, or they're not special, and they're not dangerous, but it's the ideas in books. This is why in the American South, when there was legalized slavery, it was against the law to teach African Americans how to read. Why? Because when you read, you get ideas. And when you get ideas, you become dangerous. Because all of a sudden you start thinking for yourself and not just doing what you're being told by the government or your master or whomever. You start thinking for yourself, and that's dangerous. Okay. The second book for me is the New Testament, especially the King James Version. It's beautiful, it's poetic, and there are some incredible truths in there that on how to live your life, which is, love one another as, love others as you love yourself. Judge not that you be not judged. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you have 2 coats, give 1 coat to the person who has no coats. I mean, that's awesome stuff. I love the New Testament. It's so beautiful, wonderfully written. And the third thing, and this is another great book. This is a great book. I know I'm getting excited. Okay, it's that old first grade ADD stuff, ADHD coming out. This book is called Atomic Habits. Atomic meaning small, like atoms. And by the way, never trust atoms. They make up everything. That's a physics joke. Okay, all right. So I was always I was a goal guy. Goal. And, I set goals. For example, I like to hike mountains. So I set a goal, I want to hike a mountain that's 10,000 feet. Then 12,000 feet, then 14,000 feet. Then I went to South America and hiked a mountain at 20,000 feet. And that's as high as I've been since the 70s. It's just a joke, Dr. Bertrand. Just a joke, okay. I burned all my old yearbooks. Okay. So, but the problem with goals is they're either set so low. It's like, tonight I'm going to pop popcorn and watch a movie. Your friends are like, oh, cool, way to achieve, way to go. That's really great. Or you set it high, and you finally do achieve it, and then you're like, hey, I achieved my goal, and then what? And then what? There's always the and then what. So goals, according to James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, he says, forget the goals. Try to determine the person you want to become. So I've got a ton of friends that, most adults, they'll say, I need to lose 20 pounds. I need to lose 20 pounds. I need to lose 20 pounds. And 6 months later, they say, well, now I need to lose 30 pounds, because the goal didn't work. So instead of a goal, what the author would suggest, and I bought into it 100%, was, what is the kind of person I want to become? So instead of like, I want to lose 20 pounds, it's, I want to be a healthy person, a more healthy person. So he suggests you build into your daily routine tiny habits that help you become the person you want to become. So you want to be a more healthy person, so every day you go for a walk for 20 minutes or half an hour, or you lift weights, or you get on the spinner bike, or you do something to help you become more healthy. You're going to eat more healthy, or cut back on desserts, or whatever. But you build those tiny little habits every day. I want to be more intellectual. I want to be an intelligent person. So every day I'm going to, read for a half an hour. I'm going to, look at some research papers. I'm going to do this, and you do it every day. You do things every day. I want to be a more musical person. So I'll practice the piano for 20 minutes or half an hour a day. I'm going to learn how to read music, or I'm going to, listen to various composers from around the world. But you do it every day. And therefore, there's no end in sight, but you just keep getting better. You keep improving on what you want to become. Atomic Habits. It's a book that changed my life. I was super focused on goals and then realized that was kind of an end game. I like this idea of becoming. I want to be better, on so on and so forth. Okay. A couple other things I want to just quickly hit. Many of you suffer from the imposter syndrome. So one of these days, you'll be, 5 years from now, you'll be the CEO of a company, and you'll think, I can't believe I'm the CEO of this company. I can't believe I'm the accountant. I can't believe I'm the spokesperson for this company. It's just me. I'm just me. Don't these people realize I'm an imposter? We all have it. Well, I want you to know that everybody feels that way. Everybody has the imposter syndrome at one time or another. I was the CEO, superintendent. I had 1,000 employees. I had a budget of $50 million. I passed eight bonds and levies to bring $125 million into Rexburg to build buildings. And I'm just a knucklehead from nowhere, Wisconsin. So I want to tell you guys something. You do belong. You do belong. Wherever it is, whatever you're going to be doing, you belong. The other thing is, most of us are just winging it. When you hear people, they got their life together, they got everything together, they know stuff. It's just a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of horse manure. They're just winging it. People are just doing the best they can. Whether it's your professors, your parents, your grandparents, the neighbor down the street, most people are just doing the best they can. So you belong. And as you achieve, you belong. And you need to know that. I've been talking a long time. So I want to kind of sum up. I talked about the hard things of life, the poverty, the hunger, the abuse, the neglect, the abandonment. You can overcome hard things. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm in my 60s, and I still wrestle on occasion. I have feelings on occasion that I would like me at my physical peak and the dairy farmer at his physical peak, 3 minutes in a cage somewhere. Just love to just have, but that's unproductive. But you can overcome hard things. Number 2, a takeaway, please. If you have been the victim of any kind of abuse, make sure that perpetrator is brought to justice and make sure the abuse ends with you. I have 5 children, and my wife always said, "You're so soft with the kids, you never discipline them." And yeah, I didn't want my kids to fear me. I wanted there to be love and mutual respect, and I think we have that. So you can overcome abuse. You can. And you can achieve things in life. Read. Read well. Rotate your reading and find those 3 books that will help you define your life. And remember, you belong. Like was mentioned, 5 university degrees. I speak 3 languages. Más o menos. Great family. I mean, life is good. And that can be you as well. And I want you to know that you belong, that you can achieve. And if you ever lose doubt in yourself, just remember that no matter where you are, and this is going to sound corny and it's not meant to be, I believe in you. I've been where you've been. I've been a student. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to go through hard things. I know what it's like to go through the world of academia. I know, believe me, written a lot of research papers. You can do it. And the other thing is, and last but not least, and without trying to sound weird or corny, I know God is with you. Whether you believe or not, whether you're wherever you are on your faith path, I know God is with you. So, and when God is with you, you know you can succeed. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been my great honor to share a few thoughts with you today. Thank you very much.
Just by way of conclusion, just wanted to verify what he